Howdy friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Luke and today we're going through the 5 easiest Hoya that you can collect, so stay tuned for more. What's the criteria for me to think that a Hoya is easy? Typically, it should be easy to find, not too specialty, but doesn't have to be the most common. It can't require any sort of crazy humidity or like 70% humidity or anything nuts like that. It has to be kind of fine in normal house conditions. And also it can't take forever to grow or forever to root or something like that. Example of something that's not the easiest is my Sigillatus. While I love that Hoya, it takes forever to root. I had a really tough time getting my cuttings rooted and I'm still trying to root some. So that will not make the list today. Also, just keep in mind, this isn't my opinion, this isn't my experience. Everybody's experience is gonna be a little bit different. I'm going based off what I've noticed as a Hoya plant parent, but for you, it may be completely different. Always feel free to leave your thoughts down in the comment section. Do you think I'm crazy or not? Let me know down below. Number 5 on my list is the Hoya Sunrise. As you can see, this is still in the cup that I received it in. It was rooted back in September, and it's basically been living in this little cup of dirt ever since. Needless to say, I have not been taking the best care of it. Yet it is still continuing to put out new leaves. There's 2 little leaves coming in right here. This leaf continued to grow. This one's new. This one's new. So it's actually put out about 3 or 4 leaves since I've had it in just that little pot. Granted, it's not a giant plant, but it's already doing better than a lot of my Hoya when I first got them. A lot of my Hoya take a while to put out leaves, or if I transplant them, they take forever to recover, where this one's kind of just shooting off growth, even though it's a little cup. Also, something else that doesn't really play into it being easy, but I just like the coloration. It has this reddish tint around the leaves, which is nice, and it hasn't been really in super direct sunlight, but I know that when you put it into some direct sunlight, it tends to turn this kind of reddish color, which is always really nice. Once again, it doesn't have to do with how easy it is, but it's just a nice little perk. I'm excited to see how it will do when I actually transplant it and let it thrive. But so far so good, even though it's just in a little tiny cup. That's why it made it onto my list of easiest Hoya. Number 4 on my list is Australis Lisa. So this Hoya, she's looking huge. Look how big she is. She's just real girthy over here. This Hoya I've had for maybe a few months, but it grows like crazy. One thing to note about this Hoya is the Australis Lisa, because of the high variegation, it definitely grows a little slower than the regular Australis, which I have kind of right over here next to it, but it still is very easy to take care of. I've let this plant go for probably over a month without watering, not intentionally, just like during a point of neglect, where a lot of my other plants kind of would wither up and die. This one still held strong. The leaves would be like really wrinkly, almost like a dying succulent, but as soon as I'd water it, it'd bounce right back. Aside from the beautiful variegation this plant has, something else I love is this kind of purple leaf as it comes in. The leaves are like a purplish reddish as they come in, which is always nice as a plant parent to see some cool coloration, but it grows really compact. And I don't know if this is just this plant or what, but this, like in particular, this branch, look how many leaves are in this kind of little tiny area. It's just growing so compact and so nice, which is something that I really appreciate. A lot of my other Hoya, they'll shoot off these long vines and then a couple leaves will poke out. But this one, it just kind of keeps putting off leaves. It's really compact. I really like that. The regular Australis I have over here as well, that one tends to like vine out like crazy. But this one, I've kind of kept nice and compact and I just love it. It just grows so nicely. So that's why this has a place on my list. Number 3 on the list is the Hoya Waiariai. This Waiariai I have here has tons of growth points. We have this one over here. There are just so many growth points. I got this plant as just a little one, just a little guy. Had maybe 2 or 3 growth points. And I did at one point chop and prop and kind of stick back in to give it a couple more growth points. But it just has flourished ever since. I don't do anything special at all. I frankly kind of neglect it at times, but no matter what, it just continues to put out new vines and new vines. There's one growth point like down here where there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vines coming out of this one little growth point. So this sucker is just shooting off vines. It's like my crazy Waiariai hair. It's like, hey, this is my hair. What am I doing? Yes, this one is so easy to take care of. I was a little worried at first because it was kind of more exotic in my opinion. When I first got it, I got it on Etsy. It was not doing super hot, but then I transplanted it basically, which I shouldn't have done this either. As soon as I got it, I basically transferred it right away into Leco without letting it kind of rejuvenate. But even when I did that, it still kind of started to take off, and then it's been taking off ever since. Overall, this one has just been super easy. You don't see it everywhere, but it's not super rare either. It's fairly easy to find. I've yet to see one in like my local nursery, so I guess it doesn't really get a ton of points in that section, but if you're looking online, you can find them fairly inexpensive, like at, you know, more of a specialty online shop or Etsy. Pretty straightforward. So that's why this one earned a spot on my list. Number 2 on my list is the Crinkle 8. This plant is a Carnosa variety, so I don't know if it's I can't remember if it's Carnosa mixed with something else or if it's just been cultivated to have this crinkly texture, but it's in the Carnosa kind of family. I would say this one grows maybe not as well as a regular Carnosa, but it's pretty close, and it is just really fun and unique. So that's why it's kind of on the list here. One thing I noticed about this one is it has a tendency to kind of split off. So you can see kind of over here, it had a tendency, it just kind of like shot off a different, it kind of was going in 2 directions. So it started like kind of going up in this direction and that direction as well, which is always fun with a Hoya when it kind of splits on its own. I did cut this one here to try to get it to kind of shoot off in a different direction. And I also propagated that because I'm gonna eventually put those back into this pot to kind of make it a fuller pot as well. This one's continued to kind of grow, and frankly, I've let it go. In Leca, you really should never let anything dry out. I've definitely let this dry out a few times because it's near a fan and it dries out faster, and I kind of forget about it, and it still like holds on pretty well. You can see it does have some like sun stressing or maybe even like sun damage. I'm not sure. It's kind of lighter in color, probably due to some of the neglect. I mean, the leaves still feel fine. It's also a little bit lighter in color, I think, because it's gone a few times where I forgot to give it nutrients. Frankly, I've been abusing this plant and it still hangs on pretty well. It still continues to grow too. I would say one area this maybe gets a few points deducted is in rooting. I did have more trouble rooting this one than some of my other Hoya. I think that has to do with it being such a thick stemmed Hoya that maybe it was a little bit harder to root, but other than that, it grows like a regular Carnosa, or similarly to the one that is coming next in our list, which would be number 1. This plant overall grows pretty well, and I've neglected the heck out of it, and it's still kind of continuing forward. It's still growing, so that's why it's on the list. And the number 1 easiest Hoya to grow in my collection is the Puma Calyx. This one is just massive. I mean, look at this thing. It's like flopping around. It's basically a tree at this point. Look at this thing. Look at my head for size. This little guy is such a trooper. I think this was my first Hoya, I think. And it's just continued to explode with growth. This, like many of my plants, unfortunately has gone neglected at some times. Specifically, you know, letting it dry out too much by accident and for like 4 weeks. And it's still being fine. But overall, it's been pretty good. And at this point, I feel like it's kind of stopped growing to some degree because it's like, where else should I go? I got nowhere else to go because I haven't added another trellis, but it's kind of continuing to get bushier and bushier. This specific plant does have lots of high splash. So you can see like here, this piece is really splashy. This piece is pretty splashy. Down in here, it's pretty splashy as well. Lots of nice high splash pieces. This plant is so easy to take care of. Also, it's very easy to find. When it comes to Hoya, it's probably the easiest to find aside from maybe a regular Carnosa. Maybe not. This honestly might be even easier. This is dusty. I need to dust this plant really badly. I'm sorry, plants. Sorry, my plants, neglecting you. But this might even be easier to find than a regular Carnosa. And they're kind of everywhere, and they're usually pretty cheap. I think I got this one for like 15 or 20 bucks, and it was already a full established plant. It's just continued to thrive and thrive. And I even took that pretty established plant, tore it all the way out of dirt, rinsed the roots out, put it into Leca, and it just continued to put out new leaves. Super easy to grow, super simple to take care of. Definitely a great plant. Yeah, this is one that I think I've already said. I neglect it pretty badly, but it still continues to thrive. That's kind of the theme with all of these Hoya. I think they're easy if they're able to be neglected and they still thrive. If you are a new Hoya collector or you've never had a Hoya before, I would definitely check out the Puma Calyx because yeah, easy to take care of, easy to find. You can find ones that are high splash, which I feel like is a reason that a lot of people like Hoya because that like splashiness, it's kind of unique to Hoya. But yeah, if you are new or just looking for something easy to take care of, definitely this should be at the top of your list. Well, friends, that's all we got today. That's all we got on my list of the 5 easiest Hoya to take care of, at least in my opinion. What are your thoughts about my list? Do you agree with me? Do you think, yes, these are all super easy? Or you think, you're crazy, Luke, there's so many easier ones, or the ones you said were easy are just so hard for me? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's have a conversation about it. If you liked what you saw today, please give the video a huge thumbs up, hit that like button, really helps out the channel, subscribe, hit the little notification bell. That alerts you every time I post new videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you real soon.